Good morning, afternoon and evening, my crazies, and my name's Angela and I'm the Crazy Poppy Lady, and today we are going to be doing a basic granny square. Now this one I've chosen to do in two different colours. Both of these are Aldi yarns, which are a DK weight yarn. I'm using a 4mm hook. So for this, all you're going to need to know is how to chain and how to do a double crochet. It's super duper simple. Oh, and count to 3. But hey, I think we've got that covered, haven't we now? Now this square can of course be turned into just a simple square and a washcloth, or you can make it bigger and make it into a little towel, or keep going around and round and round to make yourself a nice square receiving blanket for a baby, or of course a plan blanket or a cot blanket or a playmat if you use a chunkier fuzzier yarn. There is lots and lots of different things you can do with a basic granny. So come on, let's get making and let's see how you enjoy it today. So come on and let's go on and let's get this square done. Right, so let's get started. For this one I'm going to be using two different colours of yarn. This way it will show you the difference between each row. So hopefully it will make it a little bit easier for you. So we're going to start off with our blue, or I'm going to start off with blue. I'm going to pop a slip knot on my hook and chain up for right, so once we've got those 4 done, we are going to pop our hook into that very first chain and draw up a loop and pull a slip stitch through. Now this will create a hole in the middle. Honestly, there is one there. Okay, and we're going to be working into that hole. So to start off with, we are going to chain up 3, and now we're going to place 2 double crochets into the gap in our chain. Okay, so you'll have your chain 3 and then 2 double crochets are worked into that hole in the middle. Now you can work over your tail at this point as well. Makes it a lot easier. It saves you having to do a lot of sewing at the end. Right, now we're going to chain 2, and again we are going to this time put 3 double crochets into that hole in the middle. Chain 2 and repeat a further 2 more times with 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2. But don't panic, I'm working along with you on this one. So we've got our 3 double crochets, chain 2, now 3 more double crochets. And chain 2. Okay, so at the end of this section you should have chain 3, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets and a chain 2. Okay, so I'm going to be swapping my colour out, and how I'm going to do that is we are now going to be joining to the top of that third chain. Okay, I pop your yarn on and I pull it through. Okay, and finish off as a slip stitch. Right, now we are going to now chain 3. Once that's done, we're going to turn our work. Now into our chain 2 spot, we are going to place 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and then 3 double crochets. So in total, into that chain 2 space, you will have 2 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 double crochets. Now we're going to skip this set here and work directly into this next chain 2 space. Now this one we are going to be placing 3 double crochets, a chain 2, and 3 more double crochets. So there's our first 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 more double crochets, so let me recap that for you. That is 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets all around the chain 2 from the row below. Now we're going to skip over again and we're going to repeat the same pattern. So that is 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets all around that chain 2 from the row below. And there we go. And now we're going to skip over again and we're going to repeat the same process again. So that is 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. Right, so once you have done that in all of the corners, we are going to now slip stitch to this first stitch, and of course I'm going to change the colour again, so I'm just going to cut off my yarn, give myself a tail to sew in, and then rejoin it again at the slip stitch using the slip stitch method. Okay, so I find the top of that chain, pop your hook through, pull up your yarn, yep. There we go. Okay, and now we are going to again chain up 3 and turn our work for round number 3. There we go. So for round number 3 we are going to be placing 2 double crochets into the chain 2 section that we've just done. Okay, so that will create our little 3 double crochets there. And then we're going to work into the corner. Now our corner sequence again is the same as it was on the row below. So it's 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets into the corner. Now our next stitch placement is actually this little gap that was formed between this block of 3 double crochets and this block of 3 double crochets. Okay, we are going to place 3 double crochets in there. Just like that. Now we're going to work onto our corner. So again, our corner pattern is 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. Just like that. Okay, so on your sides you should have a set of 3 double crochets in your corner stitch, 1 in the middle and then 1 at the end, and then our chain 2, and then of course we're going to work along the next line, or the next side I should say. So to do that we're going to repeat this side here. So find that gap between your 2 blocks of stitches and then pop in 3 double crochets. Skip over to the corner and pop in your 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. My hands aren't working today. Okay, skip over to the gap between the blocks for your pop in 3 double crochets. Back to our corner for our 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. I was trying to jump ahead then, wasn't I? There we go. And then it's a case of a slip stitching into the top of the chain, just as we've done before. Now of course I'm going to be changing my colour over again. Don't worry, I'll cut that in a moment. Make sure I've given myself enough to sew in. Chain up 3. And then it will be time to work onto round number 4. Right, now for row number 4, of course you have done your chain 3, you now turn your work, you place 2 double crochets into the gap by the chain, then we're onto our corner. So of course with our corner it's the same as normal, it is 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. Okay, so for this round, sorry, our stitch pattern is going to be a block of 3 double crochets in this first hole, a block of 3 double crochets in the second hole, and then our corner stitches, which are the 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. We're going to repeat that pattern all the way around. So I'll do this first row with you and then remind you what you need to do for this edge and this edge here, and then I'll join you back for this one. Right, so we are going to place 3 double crochets in the gap between these 2 stitches. And then we are going to place 3 double crochets into the gap between these 2 stitches. Now it's time for the corner. 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets. Okay, and now we are back down for this row. It is a repeat of this one. So remember, we're going to be placing 3 double crochets into each gap. So we should have 2 clusters of 3 double crochets along the top, and then of course our corner stitch. I'm going to leave you to get on with this bit. If you need guidance, just rewind the video and back to this corner. I will meet you when you get to this one. Right, so and now we're up to this very last corner. So of course that is 3 double crochets, a chain 2 and 3 double crochets all into that same spot. Now we are onto this last row. So for this one, all we're going to do is place a cluster of 3 double crochets into this gap just here. And then we are going to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3. And again, I'm changing my colour out. Little tip, if you are changing your colour out as often as I am doing, make sure that you sew your ends in as you go, otherwise you won't be able to see your work when you sort of get up to this point, which is why my ends have now been sewn in. Right, so and now we are on to rows number 5. So for row number 5, what we are going to do, of course, is a chain up 3 and turn our work. And the same scenario as every other row. Okay, we are placing 2 double crochets into this very first gap. Now we're going to skip over to the gap between our clusters and pop in 3 double crochets. And do our corner section. 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. Right, so for the top, right, so for this section, what we're going to do is the same as we've done on every single row before this, which is popping in a cluster of 3 double crochets into each gap along. Okay, and then in our corner sections we are going to do the 3 double crochets, chain 2, 3 double crochets all around that chain 2 there. Okay, so at the end of this you should have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 little clusters on each row. Okay, or another way of breaking it down is 3 clusters along and your 2 corners. Okay, so that is it. That is the pattern for this row. Round. So I will show you with this row here, and then I'm going to meet you back when we get down here. Now the really good thing about this pattern is as you build up the rows, it's a really easy method to remembering where to put your little clusters, and that is in the gaps between them from the previous row. With each round that you do, you will gain 1 extra cluster per side. Okay, and it's that simple and nothing really too complicated about it. The only thing you need to remember when you're doing these rounds is the slip stitching when you get to the end, and of course your chain 3 and then flipping your work round between each row. That way you've got no reason to slip stitch over or add any extra stitches in, and it can be quite a speedy project. Now of course this granny square method you can end up using for blankets. You just keep going and going and going and you get a nice square blanket at the end of it. I've also seen this method used to make tops, scarves and all sorts. So it's a really nice and very quick, as you can see, a method of building up a square. Right, so as I said, on this side you have got your 3 that you've placed in individually along the gaps here, and then of course you've got your corner clusters as well, or your corner sets of stitches. So in total, if you just look at it from chain to chain, this one has got 5. Okay, I'm going to leave you to carry on going all the way down, and I will meet you back here for this last set of stitches. Right, so here we are back for the last few stitches. I've turned the corner already, and now I'm placing the last 3 double crochets into this row. Just like that. And now it is time to, of course, join my yarn again, the new colour, into the top of that chain 3. Okay, so we're joining with a slip stitch as we have done in every other round. Now chain up 3 and get ready to start our next round. So, and now it's time for round number 6. You've chained 3, turn your work, and then pop 2 double crochets into that little spot there, as you've done previously. Skip over to the next space between your blocks and pop in 3 double crochets. Now it's time for our corner spot. Again, 3 double crochets, a chain 2, 3 double crochets. I wonder how many of you have already sped off and carried on going. Right, let me do a little bit of a breakdown for you for this next row. Okay, or round I should say. You are going to work 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters into each round side, and then of course in this corner section you are going to do your corner stitches. Okay, so that is 4 little clusters of 3 double crochets plus your corner, and you are going to do that all the way down and all the way around, and I will meet you when you get back up to here. Alright, so here we are back for this last edge. We have got 2 more spaces to pop our little clusters of 3 double crochets in. So let's just do those. And now I'm going to be grabbing my change of colour again, and I'm going to pop my hook into the top of the chain 2, grab my new colour, pull it through, and I'm ready to start the next round. So of course for this next round I'm going to do the same as I've done previously, chain up 3 and turn my work, pop 2 double crochets into that very first spot, and then work up the side, popping in our clusters of 3 double crochet. And at this point we have got 2 clusters that we need to pop in before we hit that corner. And then we hit the corner. There we go. Now if you're doing this block as a stitch a week block, make sure that you've got your corner to corner standard square, which was our week number 5, to hand, so that you can lay your work down on it to check for sizing, to see how many rounds you will need to do. I think we're on our last. Okay, so for this row, which is row number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, number 7. Yay, a lucky 7. Of course, we are going to be putting our little clusters in as a normal. So for this one, we are going to need to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters plus our corner. So do your 5 clusters plus your corners, and I will meet you back here once you're done. Okay, so I'm back with you for this very last section. We are going to of course place 3 double crochets into this first gap, three double crochets into the second gap, and then a slip stitch into the top of this and chain 2. So to finish off our square, it's a case of chaining up 2, cutting off your yarn, give yourself a decent amount to sew in, pull it up, and then scooch down your knot. Okay, and there we go. And then we're going to sew in our ends. I'll meet you back here in a few moments once we've finished that. Right, so that is it. We are at the end of today's tutorial. Now remember, if you want to increase the size of this, all you need to do is add that extra cluster of stitches in as you go round. Otherwise the pattern is exactly the same. Okay, there's just that one extra cluster, and you can go round and round and round and round and round until it's as big as you want it. Now I'd just like to remind you that I really love receiving your images of your completed items, whether it be on one of these little squares or one of the other tutorials on the channel, or even on one of the patterns that you've purchased off of the Ravelry shop. So please send me those photos, one, so I can have a look, and two, so I can show your work off on a Whips, Bits and Chat at a later point. Right, that is it for me for today. I hope you've enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope to see you again back here next week for another Stitch a Week. Ta-ra for now, everybody.